Ladies and gentlemen, if this is our Renaissance, I look forward to our age of discovery. To help me present 3 of FMI's Executive Leadership Awards, let me ask Joe Sheridan, Chairman of our board, to join me back on stage. Joe?
Good job.
Great leaders are forward-thinking, but they retain the necessary core values of our industry. This morning, we recognize 3 individuals who remind us that the industry's roots are in the community they serve. Let's hear the story of our 3 winners.
Community, to me, means working together. It means recognizing that everybody in our neighborhood, in our cities, in our towns, in our country is important, that nobody is invisible.
Corporate responsibility has always been there to take care of the shopper and to be personal with the shopper. I don't think it's anything new. It's what makes our stores unique and part of the community.
I am son of the late Gregory Calhoun. I actually grew up working for my father. I started at the age of 14. He used to always tell us that it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice.
The staffs that I've had the pleasure of working with, I've always tried to challenge them to think creatively, okay? To think how that shopper might want to be treated. How do they want to be communicated with?
I get great satisfaction out of this job. And, sometimes it's helping find Mrs. O'Leary's lost Social Security check. And sometimes it's passing big bills, feeding millions of children in some of the poorest countries in the world in school settings. But at the end of the day, what is so gratifying about this job is that you help make things better for people.
One of the things about my father is the fact that he always pushed the envelope, be it diversity, be it new technology, new opportunities. Whenever you think things are perfect, that just means you're not looking hard enough.
To me, the most important core value is integrity. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. If you make a promise, you keep a promise. You keep it the best way you can. There's a moral compass, I think, that runs every company. And the head of that compass is integrity.
I think it's incredibly important for anybody in leadership position to go out and listen to people in their community. Talk to your representatives face to face. Tell them your story. You can feel that. You can't really feel statistics, but you can feel somebody telling you their personal story.
The most fun I have is when I'm out visiting retail and I'm seeing what the retailers are doing. It's not just about contributing money, you have to contribute time too. And that's what so many of our good store owners do. They're not just contributing, they're participating in those activities.
There were a number of different people that were on fixed income. My father knew that they had been supporters of Calhoun Foods through the years. He would actually give free groceries to elderly and senior citizens in the community.
I have local grocery stores that are very much engaged in trying to understand what the needs of the community they serve are. They provide incentives that help people buy more nutritious foods. I've been to grocery stores that have embraced this Grow Local movement and have made it a conscientious effort to go out and help local farmers. Our grocery stores are now much more part of our community. They want people to feel comfortable there. They want people to feel that it's part of their home.
People are still social animals and they want to communicate with each other, person to person. And where can you do that better than in a grocery store? Making those community centers, and that's what we call our IGA stores around the world, community centers, is terribly important. It's just not a big box. Make it personal. That will be the key to success.
Awesome.
Okay, let's meet our Hoover Award winner, Mr. Mark Batenic. Thank you.
Awesome, Mark.
Our Woodard Award winner, Mr. Greg Calhoun. We're honored today to have his son Malcolm Calhoun with us to receive the award for the family. Malcolm.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I'll get it. I'll help her out. Hold on.
We're also going to be joined by Malcolm's mom, Berlin.
Hey, Berlin, how are you?
Malcolm, I do it.
Congratulations. Please. Awesome.
Our Peterson Award winner, Congressman McGovern, could not be here today, so I've asked our head of public affairs, Jennifer Hatcher, to join us on the panel discussion and share some of her thoughts on Mr. McGovern's achievements as a member of Congress. Jennifer, come on out.
Hey, Jennifer. Wow. Can you do a picture?
Come on out. Thank you. So how is everybody?
Terrific.
Good?
Great.
Good. Well, good morning to all three of you, and thank you so much for being here. I'm going to start by doing sort of a kickoff question for all three of you, and it's about communities, and it's a two-parter. So first of all, when we think about digital engagement, I think we can all agree that this digital engagement is sort of bringing communities together in different ways from the way we looked at it historically. So I'd ask, first of all, what does community mean today in this new environment? And how has the importance of community changed during your career? Mark, can we start with you?
Oh, thank you for that question. That's great. I think community is still the same. We're just using different methods to communicate is what we're doing. And you may have all the social media out there, you have the smartphones. I was telling somebody the other day that, email's only been around 20 years. I think about that, how fast it's moved, but the community is still the same. People want to talk to each other. And sure, we have devices that we can talk to somebody 24/7, 365, but there's nothing like face-to-face. There's nothing like talking to a customer in the store and finding out about them and seeing what their likes and their wants are and what's going on in their family. And that's obviously independents do that very well, but so do all the stores around. If they want to be successful, you've got to know that customer. You've got to make them feel part of your community in your stores or in your store. And so, sure, it's changed the way we communicate with all the devices that are out there, but it's still the same. People like to talk to people, and they want to be recognized and appreciated.
What do you think, Malcolm? You agree with that?
Well, first of all, thank you for the question. I do agree with the things that Mark stated. Back earlier, Mark and I were talking. I told him that my father bought his first store in 1984. And back then, you pretty much marketed to your customers with the circulars that we put in the stores, and you gave your specials as they came in the door. With the digital age, it's basically opened those communities. It took away the boundaries. Mm-hmm. Now you're able to market not only to those customers that are coming in your stores, but you're able to actually reach out to customers who are not within that geographical bound that we traditionally thought when it came to the supermarket shopping experience. Now customers are actually analyzing, reviewing your store, not only from within the certain parameters, but within the city and actually outside of the state. So the digital age is actually allowing us to reach more and to actually share more with our customers. But the local community are really still the center and focus as to what determines how successful and how much that each individual store grows. So we still have to take care of those customers as they come in the store, but we now have an opportunity to reach and communicate outside of those boundaries.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Jennifer, the work you do, I would say community has changed considerably, and communication to community has changed considerably. Talk to us a little bit about what it means in the public affairs role.
Well, certainly community and the kinds of examples that we can come up with have completely changed. When I was growing up in Tennessee, I felt like community was the neighborhood. It was where your grandmother lived, not anything beyond. And I know when I was trying to reach Mark Batenic, because I was going to be down in his community, he was over in Australia. And the two of us were able to talk even though, we would never have thought of that before. But in terms of this work, in the Peterson Award, as well as what Chairman McGovern is doing, community, too, is looking out for those guys that may not be able to look out for themselves, guys and girls. And when you think about Esther Peterson's thought to go ahead with the nutrition facts panel at a time when, now it's just ubiquitous. We just assume we're going to have that on the label. And I know some of us curse every time we have to change the nutrition facts panel. But the same thing that Jim McGovern is doing, when some of these ideas are happening with SNAP and with harvest boxes and getting grocery stores out of the business of food, which makes 0 sense, to really get some examples, go into the local stores, talk to everyone, and be able to have the personal examples as well as the digital piece. Sure. We just launched a new digital advocacy tool, and you can just take your phone and text your representative or tweet your representative if there are folks in here that are so inclined. Or for Henry Johnson, you can call your representative straight from your phone. Thanks, Henry. So community can mean both enhanced ability to communicate way across the oceans or just right down the street.
Yeah. It's interesting as we think about communications, and particularly in leadership roles. Mark, one of the things that I've heard you say is that you have to be personal in your communications. How do you, as a leader, bring that required empathy to what you do and your communications?
Well, I would probably give the credit to my wife. She's taught me to be empathetic after 48 years. But I think it's something that everybody can be, everybody has it in their soul and in their heart, I think, to be empathetic. It's how you communicate that. I know with all the folks that I've had the privilege of working with, I just don't want to know what kind of job they're doing. That's great and all that, but I want to know about their families. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to know where they came from. I want to know where they went to school. I'm curious about what made them come to our business, and curious about what they've been doing, because I can learn something from them, okay? And I think that makes it, if it's empathetic, that's I guess that's a good word, but it's real genuine caring. I mean, I care. I have the privilege of working with over 6,000 stores around the world, and I want to learn something every time that I'm with them. Mm-hmm. And I started learning it at the age of 19 when I entered the business 50 years ago. So it just makes it personal, and I don't know how to do it any other way, to be honest with you. I think I'm just born with it, maybe. But I'll give my wife a lot of credit. Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
When you think about caring and empathy, it would be hard to imagine somebody who was more caring than your dad was. He was a friend to all. I know you had great experiences working with him and probably learned a lot of life lessons from him. Share with us some of the things that you learned, you think, from your dad.
Well, Leslie, it's difficult to actually talk about one or two things that I learned from my father because, as I stated earlier, I started working with my dad when I was 14, mainly because how close he and I were and how much I enjoyed being around him. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, a lot of my lessons were lessons I didn't even know I was learning at the time. But, I would say one time I've had in a conversation with him, he talked about his early days of owning a store and being part of a co-op. And it was a matter of, he was always told that, because you had multiple stores, you got greater advantages and different things that came with being a multiple store owner, that we could not, enjoy because at the time we just had one store. And when we became a multiple store owner ourselves, then all of a sudden, you know, those buying discounts, it was best that they fade out. And that's one of the things my father always told me, that, you know, you don't get frustrated when every now and then the target moves and shifts. You just have to make sure that you find ways to overcome. You just perform a little more, a little harder, and don't give up. And then similar, when I actually got to the point of working with him, that I actually was a store owner. Well, not an owner, but just a manager. And I had actually put in a long day that day, and probably early on, it was maybe a 12, 14-hour day. I had the fortunate pleasure of going to eat dinner with my parents that night. And I felt real good about the day. I thought I had accomplished a lot. And when I sat down at the table with my father, he shared, well, you've had a long day, but in order to be an effective manager and supervisor, when I was your age, I used to come home, go to work, come home, kiss your mother, see how you guys were doing with your homework, and I would go back to the office, go back to the store. And that was his way of telling me, you need to go back to work. But the one thing that my dad always wanted me to understand, that no matter how much you did, the only way you're going to get ahead is you have to always be willing to outwork the next guy, always give a little bit more, because once you get to the point that you're complacent, that's when you start losing ground. So he always pushed the envelope in everything he did, and that was one of the things that I most enjoyed and appreciate learning from my father.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Jennifer, Congressman McGovern has done a lot of good in his time in Congress. Talk to us a little bit about some of the things you have experienced with him and things you've seen him do that Esther Peterson would be so proud of.
No, thanks. Well, you've also served with him on the Congressional Hunger Center Board. He chairs that board of directors, and I think particularly in this time, he's a fairly liberal Democrat, and that board is made up of a lot of conservative Republicans. For a while, he and Congresswoman Joanne Emerson, I know those from Missouri probably know her well, was his co-chair on that board. But I think, you know, recognizing that we've got to work on both sides of the aisle and both sides of the Capitol and all different types of communities in order to get something accomplished, like the Congressional Hunger Center. He established the Congressional Hunger Caucus in the House of Representatives. And then now, just last year, I saw and was glad to see that we had a discussion about food as medicine. He actually established the Food as Medicine Working Group in the U.S. House. So there will be, you know, a lot of additional pieces. But I think it comes back to where he got his start. And that's kind of the story for all of us. And, you know, if you started out on the ground floor of retail, which is, you know, his family business, then no matter what your political affiliation is, you know what it takes to get the job done and what it's like to stock shelves and what it's like to try to run your business. So, you know, whenever we go in and talk to folks like that, you really get back to the basics of, you know, these are the problems we're encountering in order to get people to go along. I mean, sometimes you know, we talked about offense and defense. I mean, I've been in the trenches with these guys and on the podium too. I mean, sometimes you're playing defense and sometimes you're, you know, congratulating each other, and both are equally as important.
That's great. Thank you. You know, Esther Peterson was famous for saying, "A leader moves ahead, but not so fast that others can't keep up." As you think about Esther's words, Mark, what type of leadership do you think we need in the industry today?
Well, it's a great question, and I think we need empathetic leaders. I think we need leaders who will listen, who will probe, we'll find out what's the best way to do things. Leadership, I guess some people are born leaders. I never looked at myself as a leader, and I never dreamed I would be in the positions that I would be in, and that I've had the privilege of working in. But Esther's words are smart, but I would say this, do a job you love. Don't go through life unhappy in a job you don't like. Have passion for that job. Have lots of passion for that job. Get a mentor. Get 2 mentors. I've had 3 mentors in my life. 2 of them have won this award. I mean, I'm humbled to be in the same company as Dean Wearies and Tom Hagee. But get a mentor. Be curious every day. Learn every day. You can learn something every day. If I don't learn something every day, I'm unhappy. I review my day at night before I go to bed, and I want to know, what did I learn? What's new? What can I do better tomorrow? And to me, that is the essence of a leader, is you're always reading, you're always listening, you're looking forward. How can you help your staff and your customers, and especially in our case, our store owners, be the best they can be in the communities that they're in? And I try to lead that way, and I hope that it's successful. And I also hope that I can at least offer some encouragement to anybody else who comes into this industry, because it's not glamorous putting groceries on the shelf, but it's a basic human need that everybody does, and more people are engaged in the food business around the world than any other industry that's out there. So it's a good place to be in.
Yeah, it is a good place to be. Malcolm, what about you? What kind of leader do you think we need going forward?
Well, if I could, Leslie, I would like to use a word that you spoke of earlier, and that's radical, but from the term of going back to basics. I think we need leaders that, and even expounding on what Mark said, leaders that are willing to, give up the titles and not be afraid to actually get down, into the trenches and actually work alongside those that they're leading, and that they're actually willing to set the example of the work and efforts that it takes to accomplish the jobs, and be more willing to serve than be served. I think back to the time when my father was here, and I always wondered why wherever he went, when he met people, even when they were looking up to him, he would bow down to them. And at first it was a matter of that, I would question myself, but the more I was around him, the more I recognized and I saw that was almost his way of saying, listen, no matter what you think of me, I actually want to be that person by honoring you. And he operated that way in our stores. If you were in the store, if we were walking the stores, if you were in the stores with him, he was not afraid to be the first one, if there was a spill in the aisle, to go get the mop and bucket, get the wet floor sign, and actually be the person to clean it up. And when you see the person that is the president of your company, the owner of the store, or just your supervisor, willing to make those strides and do it, and do it from a perspective, not that you're in trouble, I'm just doing it because that's a job that needs to be done. Then those that are underneath you are willing to actually put forth that effort a lot faster and with a lot more care and just attentive nature. So I think we just need to get back to that type of leadership, whereas we're leading by example, and we're willing to actually serve those who are our subordinates.
Interesting, thank you. Jennifer, what do you think?
Well, to Malcolm's point, I know my father always told me, you can find the CEO of the company because he's the guy picking up trash in the parking lot. And I'm sure there are a lot of people in here that agree to that. But in looking at Esther Peterson and leadership and their role, I think, too, it's inviting your member of Congress to your store. That's, to me, it's leadership. It incredibly helps us but it also, gives them an understanding of what's going on in the store and what's going on in the business. I mean, if we don't lead and show them what's happening, then how can we expect them to vote the way that we want them to vote? So I think leadership in the political and consumer affairs environment, Esther Peterson started her career as a lobbyist.
I remember
And
that
then
time.
she moved to a consumer affairs advocate. And there's nothing more important to me than listening to those consumer affairs calls, because with your consumer affairs folks, because I get a heads up on an issue that may be coming down the path that we need to get on top of and get ahead of, to your point. So the lobbying, legislating, and consumer affairs are uniquely interrelated as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you. I just can't say enough my heartfelt thanks to our award winners for what they do to encourage more connected and active communities. I appreciate all of you being here today, and Malcolm, thank you especially for sharing your father's legacy with us. Let's give them a round of applause.